it is important to realize that we have certain fundamental disagreements with China, which are at a philosophical level, not even something that can be solved by sitting down and resolving border conflicts. Because in Beijing, the policy-making elite of the Chinese Communist Party believe that India is not a fully sovereign country and should not be treated as an equal power, that we still operate based on British era colonial standards. So our military, our administration, and our borders were defined by someone else and not by us. And because in that absence, we haven't projected any power, they don't respect us. They think that because of our semi-alignment with Western capital, or at least Western intellectual and political philosophies, they think that we're mentally colonized and thus do not have any narrative or power projection. Finally, they are invested in the failure of Indian democracy for their own domestic audiences. It's very important for the CPC or CCP, however you want to call it, to hold up India as an example of why demands for political liberalization in China by the public are a foolish dream. Because they will say, India has had democracy for 70 years. Do you want to be like India? Do you want to be poor, unequal, chaotic? Because that is what the West wants from you. And this is why, when people were calling for political reform, the party said there will be no political reform, there will be economic reform. The Chinese social contract of the Dengist era is that we will guarantee you material prosperity and you will accept that these are the rights and duties of a citizen of the People's Republic. And as a result, it's very important for them to show that India is an inferior power, that India has an inferior model, and that is why there is such deep Chinese involvement in Indian politics. They have agreements with two political parties in India, in the Indian media and Indian academia, in order to massage people's minds, in order to manage Indian democracy. But that's the beauty of democracy. Then every foreign power can come and help manage your internal politics to suit them. That's something that we don't acknowledge and we don't bring up in the Quad. We just feel happy. Oh, we've been included in the Quad. We're the big boys now. The US and Japan and Australia have paid attention to us and they're involving us. It's not enough to just be happy at being involved. Have you seen the Quad statements? There's no Indian interest reference there. Do they mention our border issues with Tibet? Do they mention the Tibetan government in exile in Dharamshala? Do they mention our protection agreement with Bhutan? Do they mention Arunachal Pradesh? Do they mention anything that where our soldiers are dying at the border? No, it's just about naval agreements. As a result, one worries that because we don't have strategic thinking institutionalized in our country and we don't have a clear vision or identity or narrative, that we're just being dragged along. And when it comes to it, when push comes to shove, it's still Indian soldiers who are going to die at the border with Tibet. And at that point, coming to defend India's sovereignty is not worth the blood of a single Western soldier. There's no American soldiers who are going to come and save us. What will they do? They'll say, we're going to put sanctions on 5 members of the Communist Party of China. Great. Yeah, what a wonderful achievement for diplomacy. That has no impact. So it's no secret what the foreign policy establishment in Beijing thinks of us. They say very openly that this is what they think of India. India doesn't have a mind of its own. They just go along with whatever the larger Anglosphere believes. And the issue with the Quad right now is that it will be seen in Beijing as, oh, India is joining this bloc as we always suspected, and they're provoking us, instead of what we would actually want from this, which is a deterrent force. That we should be signaling clearly that if there is another provocation on the border, then we now have enough diplomatic or geopolitical support to push back against that and push back successfully. We haven't really deployed the Quad in that way yet. I think because we're still trying to balance things out, we're still trying to have good relations and repair relations with China. So they haven't pushed for any overt Chinese-oriented messaging in their Quad statement, so at least from the Indian perspective. Now, that's an issue that it's very difficult to negotiate between India and China when they're just on two planes, that they're playing two different games, and India wants to be seen as an equal power to China, as an equal neighbor, and negotiates as such, but China doesn't, and it's almost impossible to reconcile those two visions, that almost everything we do fits into what they expected of us anyway. And without some sort of deterrent messaging, it doesn't actually guarantee further security for us. Better model might be if we really take the official definition of Indo-Pacific as being the area between the Indian Ocean and the Pacific Ocean. That means the original South Asia, which means everything south of the border with Tibet and China, which means the Indian subcontinent plus Southeast Asia. If we deepen cooperation there, India has a very large navy compared to the others. We could bring them into a broader security umbrella. We could deepen our commercial and our military ties with countries such as Myanmar, Thailand, Laos, Cambodia, with whom we also have cultural ties. That would be more skin in the game because these are all countries that share the same region, share the same concerns about China. Vietnam as well. That just because China and Vietnam are both communists, they're two different brands of communists. They've had war at their north border before in the 70s and 80s. Vietnam also ended Pol Pot's regime in Cambodia, which was propped up by both the Chinese and the US. So this is where we should really be looking. Look east and build relationships with those who actually have an interest in collective defense. We've talked a lot about China, thinking that we're an equal power to China, but quite honestly, we're not equal to China. When China says that we're a semi-sovereign, semi-colony that doesn't know its own mind, there's an element of truth in that. And that is also borne out by how we behave in our own neighborhood. That we have a country that others consider to be our equal power, and that's Pakistan. It's existed for 70 years. The way we deal with them is a signal to the rest of the world of how soft a state we are. We've defeated them in 4 wars, but lost the narrative battle to them, both domestically and internationally. And we still let them define the image of our country abroad. That Foreign Service of Pakistan does more to build the image of India abroad than the Indian Foreign Service does. Unfortunately, it's a very negative image. And we don't play the game. We don't even acknowledge that a game is being played. We're just like, oh, good intentions will shine in the end. And kaam bolta hai, as a certain politician likes to say. It doesn't. No, you need to have a public diplomacy mentality. It's not enough to do good things like vaccine Maitri. It's great that we sent vaccines to Barbados, but all of the media attention to that was in the domestic press. Not a single Western media outlet carried that news because we thought, oh, it'll just shine through. No, you have to grab them by the balls and force them to. Either you pay them or you induct your people, push them into the New York Times, like the ISI does, or put them into the Washington Post and make sure that they publish news that's favorable to you. That's the game. Learn to play it.